Welcome to the Complete Street Commission's April 8th regular commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating in accordance with public health guidelines. I would like to introduce Complete Streets Commission members and city staff present. I'm Chair Athena Iracomos. Commissioners present include Sally Cole, Jackie Sebrian, Matthew Raskoff, Scott Herscher, and Sally, did I say your name? No, that's it. City staff present include Azalea Mitch, Public Works Director, Joanna Chan, Transportation Manager, Katrine Maki, Senior Transportation Planner, Cassandra Cortez, Associate Transportation Planner, Fong Vo, Associate Transportation Engineer, and Christopher Turner, Senior Planner. Katrine, would you please provide instructions to the Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair Iracomos and members of the Complete Streets Commission. I apologize, the cameras aren't working, so we'll have this slide up. We'll still be able to share slides. If someone's online, I suppose they'll ping us if they can't hear us, but I believe the audio is working fine. Do our best. For the members of the public who wish to provide public comment for any item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comment on that item, if you're in person, we ask that you fill out a speaker card available at the back table and return that to the clerk's desk. If you're participating virtually, attendees on Zoom may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrine. The first item on the agenda is reports and announcements. Under reports and announcements, city staff and commission members may communicate general information of interest regarding matters within the jurisdiction of the commission. No commission discussion or action can occur on any of the presented items. Katrine, are there any reports or announcements?
Yes. On March 21st, this year, the City Council held its annual priority setting workshop, and they identified 5 top priorities for fiscal year 2026 and 27, with the help of many community members who shared their input. Listed in alphabetical order, the priorities are climate action, mitigation, adaptation, and resilience, downtown vibrancy, housing, public safety, and safe routes. These top priorities will provide direction to the city manager on aligning resources and the work plans for the next year.
Sorry, Katrine, did you say there were 5? 5 priorities?
Yes, so climate action.
Climate action?
Down, and then there's a hyphen, which includes mitigation.
Oh, I see.
Adaptation and resilience,
Okay.
Then downtown vibrancy, housing, public safety, and safe routes.
So housing and public safety are separate and the mitigation is up with climate.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
On April 14th, there will be the 5-year update of the capital improvement project. So that CIP 5-year update will go to council April 14th.
Oh.
The Slow Streets program will go back to city council for adoption at the end of April. And there is also going to be a bike rodeo May 2nd, put together by our police department in partnership with CHP. And so they'll be doing that a different location. Last year it was at Flood Park. This year it's going to be in the parking lot near the library, where they'll do new this year will be an education for e-bikes. That concludes my reports and announcements.
Clarifying question. Katrine, do we know if the Slow Streets program is going to city council on the 28th, that meeting?
Yeah. Yes, it will be on the consent calendar for the 28th.
28th. Oh, it's on the consent calendar.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. May I ask another question about who's on the call? Did you say Azalea and Fong?
Yes, we have Fong online. Yes.
And then Azalea is because I know that we mentioned that in the opening. I was just curious if she's in the meeting or.
I believe I can't see it the full list.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, is that it for reports and announcements? The next item is public comment. Under public comment, members of the public may address the Complete Streets Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues, brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Katrine, could you please call for general public comment?
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please fill out a speaker card from the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. Having no one in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you. The next item is regular business. Under regular business, the commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require commission approval. The first regular business item tonight is item E1, accept the Complete Streets Commission minutes for March 11th, 2026. Is there any clarification from the commission before I take public comment? No. Katrine, could you please call for public comment?
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please fill out a speaker card from the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. Having no one in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you. Do I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes? Although
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Commissioner Cole for the motion and Commissioner Raskoff for the second. Oh, yeah, we should vote. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, next is item E2, receive an update and provide feedback on the draft environmental impact report, EIR, for the 1005 O'Brien Drive and 1320 Willow Road development project. The applicant will present. For the record, there are 2 corrections to be made in the staff report. 1, there are no bike facilities along O'Brien, and 2, there will be 48 long-term bicycle parking instead of 38.
Sorry. Does that mean in the plan? In the plan that there are no bike? I know, but I'm sorry, can you repeat?
So in the plan, it's a 38 long-term bicycle parking, but there will be 48. It's planned for 48.
So to clarify, there is, right now it's identified in the EIR as part of the staff report that there is, as a background, that there is bike facility on O'Brien, and that's a misprint. So there are no existing bicycle facilities.
That's what I'm
That's
asking.
item-
If
that's
it's
item-
existing or, okay.
That's
thank you.
item 1, right?
Correct.
That there is none, and item 2 says that the plan is for 48.
Thanks for clarifying.
So the applicant will present.
And with me tonight are Dawn, Lauren, and Kenny with DES Architects. And on the phone or by Zoom, we have Elizabeth with Kimley Horn to answer your questions. We're excited to bring this project to you. And as an avid cyclist, I want to thank you for all of your work helping to make our streets more complete. With that, I'll turn it over to Dawn with DES.
Good evening, Commissioners. We've put a few slides together to help orient you to the proposed project, the existing site conditions, proposed site, and some of the features that we'll be bringing to you with the project. Let me just make sure I get this correct. Should I point this some? Yeah, maybe so. I don't know that that's working very well. Okay. So the first slide here really shows you the life science district in the light purple, and then the dark purple with the circle is the project site. So it's a site that is fronting on O'Brien and on Willow with the bite out of the corner. The next slide, please. So this contextually shows you the life science zone. The light beige buildings are Tarleton Property Holdings, and then the light blue buildings are proposed projects currently under entitlement. And so we're going to be looking at 1005 O'Brien and 1320 Willow, which is the corner parcel all the way on the left. Next slide, please. So just wanted to show you a few of the projects in the Tarleton's portfolio. New development project 1350 O'Brien is top left. And then we have a couple of projects that were renovation projects within the Menlo Park Labs area. Next slide, please. So the purple line is outlining the proposed site. There's 3 existing low-rise industrial buildings on the project, on the site right now, and 3 separate parcels. And then the next slide, we just wanted to give you some, I'm sure you're familiar, but just show you some views of the existing streets there on Willow, and then eastbound and westbound on O'Brien Drive. So you can see that there's trees along the street. There's no bicycle facilities in O'Brien. And really no definition of sidewalk in front of the projects. It's just a paved area between the curb and the buildings with some off-street parking occurring. Next slide, please. And we can go to the one after that, that's fine. So this is the development, the proposed development. So 1005 O'Brien with its long elevation facing O'Brien Drive, 1320 Willow. 1005 is a 5-story building, 1320 is a 4-story building, and then we've got the parking structure that both buildings share tucked in the back of the project. And then along kind of the northern boundary, Page North, that's where we have some outdoor space, amenity for the tenants, as well as some sport court facilities out back. We've got service yard access for both buildings, loading and drop off, and then access to the parking garage. So 2 driveways on O'Brien, 1 on Willow. So just to summarize, 1005 O'Brien, we're providing 325 parking spaces within the parking structure. 1320 Willow, which would be a phase 2 project, 195 cars in the parking structure for a total of 520 stalls. And that's a 6.5 level parking garage. We go to the next. So this is a view of the 1005 O'Brien project. You can see it's transformational in terms of the streetscape. We've got lobbies fronting the street with generous entry plazas, and then a nicely landscaped frontage with new pedestrian and bicycle facilities. So if we go to the next slide, you can see in more detail in plan what I just described. One more. Yeah. That's 1005, yeah. So the lobby is bottom right. You can see the street trees, some pedestrian facilities, and mostly landscaping along the frontage between the property line and the building. So this is on the right-hand side of this image is kind of the easternmost property line, and then the driveway that would come in on the right-hand side of that building. So then the next slide, we have a plan. So you can kind of see that in plan. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the entry drive. And then at the corner, you see the entry plaza, and then the generous landscape frontage, which is between 26 and 30 feet setback from the property line. We're showing a 5-foot bike lane, a class 2 bike lane with the 3-foot of stripe separation along the street. We've got a 4.5-foot planting strip and a 5-foot sidewalk facility. The power poles will remain along the street, but the power from the poles is undergrounded to the building. They do serve the project across the street as well, so the poles have to remain. And then we just have a couple of different tree species there for more interest, you know, really significantly trying to improve the pedestrian experience along the frontage. And then similarly, for 1320 on Willow. This is an elevation of the building as it fronts Willow. We've removed some of the landscaping in front so you can really see the building, but when we go to the next page, you'll see how the landscaping is laid out in front, and you'll see the pedestrian access that connects to Willow along the top edge of the buildings there, connecting back to the amenity area, the landscaped amenity area. The average setback from Willow for this building from the property line is about 45 feet. Its tight point is 40, it goes to 60. And then we do have existing Class 2 facilities in Willow that we're showing. So that's the bike lane with the striped separation lane as well. We go to the next page. So we wanted to give you, there's pretty extensive existing amenities on the Menlo Labs development area. So this was trying to lay that out for you so you could see what we're providing. So the on-site bicycle facilities as a whole for the campus is 132 bikes located throughout the campus. That's divided into long-term and short-term parking, 95 and then 37 short-term. There's a fitness center with multiple shower facilities for campus use, as well as a conference center as part of that, part of the cafeteria space. We also have rideshare and electric vehicles available for campus use. So we have 210 electric vehicle charging stations located throughout the campus. There's a bike share program for Menlo Park Labs. So there's 20 electric bikes and various staging areas for those bikes throughout the campus. And then there's also a car share for qualified tenants. So there's electric vehicles for the tenants to use as well. The shuttle service to Menlo Park Labs, both the electric bikes and the shuttle services is monitored for demand. And so it's modified as demand changes and things are moved around. So you can see we provide pretty extensive connectivity to BART and Caltrain. And then there's also the City of Menlo Park shuttle service as well. I mentioned the next slide, I mentioned the conference center already. The food service, the central food service, cafeteria, restaurant is at 1440 O'Brien's, kind of the brown box on the bottom edge of the plan there. Yep. And then outdoor fitness is pretty extensive as well. There's 7,000 square feet in the fitness center, including the gym. There's a lap pool, a climbing wall in there. And then we also have volleyball courts, basketball courts, tennis, pickleball, and the Innovators Art Walk that connects through to the 1350 O'Brien project, and various community events. So a lot of things to keep people on campus, extend the work hours, and offset peak hour trips. And so for the project specifically, we're providing 48 long-term bicycle parking spaces and 20 short-term at the buildings and garage. The building restroom cores on the first floor will also provide 4 shower and changing, 4 for women and 4 for men. Electric vehicle charging, in addition to the campus numbers that I mentioned, are 76 EV charging stations for this particular project, and 158 EV capable spaces, and then 42 clean air vehicle parking spaces. I mentioned the electric bike share. So we do have a setup for that on this site as well. And as I mentioned, that's kind of an on-demand. So as the demand increases, the number of bikes will be increased as well. And then commute support is the Commuter Assistance Center and the Caltrain Go passes. And then we mentioned we have Elizabeth on the line with any questions about the TDM, but just in summary, the next slide shows the City of Menlo Park's trip reduction targets at 20% and the VMT at 15% below the citywide average. That gets us 13.6 VMT per employee. CCAG requires 35% trip reduction, and the proposed project we're at 36%. And with VMT before TDM at 19 per employee, with our TDM, we're down to 11.6. So we're improving on the citywide average by 39%. And so that concludes the slides that we put together. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have. And Elizabeth is on the line if you have TDM specific questions. Thank you.
Does anyone on the commission have clarifying questions? Oh,
Good evening, commissioners. No, it is not working. You here either. Okay, well, a little technical difficulty, but Katrina, we can advance. So the following section is going to focus on 3 main parts, and there will be some overlap with what you have just heard from the applicant. So we'll first give a brief overview of the project and highlighting key transportation aspects, and then we will go through the transportation analysis under CEQA, but as well as for our local planning purposes, and then we'll conclude by providing next steps of the review process. Next slide. So this map is showing the project location at the corner of Willow Road and O'Brien, and those are the 2 main roadways to the project. There are existing nearby bicycle facility class 2s on Willow Road and University Avenue, a little bit hard to see, but they're in the green, they're marked in green. There's also transit routes as well as the city shuttle route along Willow and O'Brien. It's in the dark purple and the blue, and this together is to illustrate that there is multimodal access to the project. Next, please. Next slide. The project will involve demolishing 3 existing buildings and constructing 2 new R&D buildings and a new parking garage. And open space will be scattered around the project site. And again, there will be both long-term and short-term bicycle parking provided. Next slide, please. There will be, the site will be accessible through 3 main driveways, 1 on Willow Road and 2 on O'Brien Drive, shown in red arrows. And there will also be internal walkways that connects to the sidewalks on Willow Road, as well as new sidewalks on O'Brien Drive. And some of the internal walkways shown in green. There will also be 2 enclosed long-term bicycle parking shown in the purple, and also 3 short-term bicycle parking areas in the yellow, and they're nearby the entrances of the buildings. Since the implementation of SB 743 in 2020, vehicle miles travel is now the standard for CEQA transportation analysis. So that is looking at the total amount of driving that a project could generate. And CEQA analysis also assess impacts looking at transit, pedestrian, and bicycle travel as well. And while it is not a CEQA requirement, this project also evaluated the level of services just for informational purposes. Next slide. So the project is estimated to generate 19 vehicle miles travel per employee, and that is over the regional average of 15.9. The city's threshold is 15% below the regional average, which is 13.6, which means the project is exceeding the city's threshold by 28.4%. And in addition, CCAG requires 35% trip reduction for a project that generates over 100 daily vehicle trips. So in summary, the project will require mitigation under CEQA, and it needs to reduce trips by at least 35% to be in compliance with city as well as CCAG requirements. So the project's TDM plan targets a 36% reduction, and it includes key measures such as shuttle services, carpool and vanpool programs, transit subsidies, bicycle facilities amenities, education to encourage alternative transportation, and the effectiveness of the TDM plan will be evaluated, monitored, and reported annually. So the level of service and analysis, again, was included for informational purposes, and it's a measurement from A through F really to reflect the flow of traffic at intersections. And for this project, 12 intersections were studied, and it was analyzed under near-term as well as cumulative conditions. And under both conditions, multiple intersections will become non-compliant. Recommendations were provided, however, because of limited right-of-way or potential impacts to bicycle and travel. Majority of the improvements are deemed infeasible. And here is a quick view of the intersections that were studied and their LOS levels. Next slide, please. So we're currently in the draft EIR 40-day review period, which ends on May the 18th. The Planning Commission public hearing is scheduled for May the 4th. Written comments must be submitted no later than 5:30 on May the 18th. And a summary of recommendation today will be included in the staff report to the Planning Commission. And also after completing the pilot as directed by City Council, the process will also be provided to Council as an informational item. And this concludes our presentation, and we can answer any questions you have.
Okay, so now we can take clarifying commission questions. Who wants to start? Go.
I did have a few. Can you help us understand how many people in the existing 3 buildings that are on the site, how many people work in those buildings and how many people are projected to work in the buildings that you are planning to build?
Sorry about that question we weren't prepared for. I can't tell you how many employees are in the existing buildings, but we estimate that between the 2 new buildings, it'll be about 600 employees.
Okay, thank you. Just a sec, sorry. I think you said that the 6.5 level parking garage had 194 spaces. Is that what you said? Pardon? I'm sorry, something like that. Or it was just ballpark. I'm just trying to understand.
I just wanted to make sure there were no surface parking stalls before I give you the number. I think it's 520, but let me get to,
Oh, I'm sorry, 520 spaces.
let me get to that page.
I may be able to answer that. So when the parking garage would be complete, there'd be 497 spaces, and then there are 23 surface parking spots. So total for the site at 520.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for that.
Pardon?
And we were phasing the garage, so we're not going to overbuild the garage by phase. So we would build what we needed for the first building and then add to the garage for the second building.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for clarifying that. And then a few more clarifying questions.
Stay here.
Pardon me. I know in the staff report, it was discussing the total square feet of the whole site, and then which I think it was over 30,000 square feet was public space. I think if this is actually perfect, thank you for putting the slide up. I think I have some confusion around what the public space is. Like, for example, when you see that green part there on the top,
Yeah, the outdoor open space there.
yeah, I wasn't sure if that was for the tenants or for, I'm sorry, I just don't understand what the public space is.
One moment, please.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Through the chair, I can answer this one as well. I have the plans in front of me. So as part of the LS zoning district, a portion of the site is required to be open space, and then a portion of that is required to be publicly accessible open space. So anybody in the public can use it. There ends up being public access easements over that land. So the majority of the publicly accessible open space is along Willow Road. You see at the north side, there's that meandering path. You can kind of see at the top here. The majority of that will be publicly accessible all the way over to the sports court from Willow Road. And then there's a little bit of publicly accessible open space along O'Brien Drive.
Okay, this is an adjacent clarifying question. To clarify around the existing state of the bike ped infrastructure and what it will be post-project, on the Willow side, there is a sidewalk and a Class 2 bike lane, and that remains the same, correct? On the O'Brien side, there's a sidewalk with no bike lanes, and the bike lane is,
There's no sidewalk right now.
oh, I thought I saw a picture.
It's just a curb and then a paved surface all the way to the building.
Thank you.
There's no defined
Understood.
sidewalk at the
Okay.
moment. Yeah,
Thank you. There's no defined sidewalk, and sidewalk will be installed.
yes.
And then there's no bike striping or any sort of bike lane there, but it will be added.
Yeah, there is adequate street width to add the bicycle lane, which would be the 5 feet plus the 3 feet of hatched separation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I had read protected. So it's a striping with a 3 feet addition. Got you. Like on
so-
Santa Cruz.
Yep. So to know, we would like to look at O'Brien more comprehensively. So it is unlikely that this project itself during construction is going to bring on bike lanes, because then it will be piecemeal. So there could be likely a bigger conversation on how to bring that facility along O'Brien and not just specific to this project.
I see. Actually, thank you for clarifying that. So currently, to the right of what we're seeing, because the campus extends,
Yes,
there aren't bike lanes on O'Brien.
not
At
right
all.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we just look at the plan for a second, if we can go back to the overall site plan. So the portion of open space that you see along the top of the parking garage in 1320 Willow, where the sport courts are, that's the public open space, the publicly accessible open space. It's the pieces that kind of come and start to weave through between the buildings, which is not dedicated to the public.
Mhm. A final clarifying question on exactly that portion of the site. What is that there? Is that a road between your site and what's above it on the slide?
I believe that we've got Hetch Hetchy is kind of where that goes kind of across the top. So that is a parking area off-site from us.
Okay, but can someone drive down that? Is that, no?
Mid-Penn High School.
Okay. No, I mean, like, is that a road? Yes,
No, it's not a road.
not a road.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's Mid-Penn High School.
It's a car park. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just gonna see if I've got any other questions there. Sorry. And to clarify, you said that you, the developer, was providing the shuttle service in addition to the existing Menlo Park shuttle.
Yes, it's a shuttle that already exists that Tarleton Properties provides, and it will be extended to serve these two buildings. It already comes right past, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Everything else I have will be feedback. But those are my clarifying questions. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I think I understand the O'Brien question is larger. So part of my question was whether there would be bike lanes on both sides of the street. But for now, but that seems like the
Broader
other side of the
conversation.
street is a different project.
Yes.
Okay. The other question I have is there's the, I think it was in the city's presentation about like looking at, 11 different intersections that we're going to maybe need fixes, but that they couldn't be fixed. And so my question is specifically about the left turn onto O'Brien from westbound or like southbound Willow, however we describe that. Having ridden it before and specifically today, like if we're thinking that bikes are going to commute to that facility, that's a really hard left turn to make. And so I'm curious what plan we have for making it more amenable for bikes to get in and out.
Okay, I would defer that question to traffic engineer or city.
And to clarify, that's the left turn riding on Willow onto O'Brien, correct?
Yes.
So there is the Willow Class 4 project, and I will have to confirm the specifics,
Got
but
it.
there will be enhancements at the intersection. It will include pedestrian as well as bike crossing, but in terms of like lane configuration, I will have to follow up on that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Could I ask a clarifying question of you? When you're describing a bicycle making a left-hand turn onto O'Brien from Willow, where is this bicycle coming from? Because I've spent a lot of time on a bike,
Right.
and I've spent a lot of time trying to help city staff and county staff understand how to improve bike experience for my tenants. And the biggest challenge that I have tried to get them to is on the other side of the Dumbarton Bridge. I'm trying to get tenants to take a bike or electric bike from the east side across
Right.
the Dumbarton Bridge to our campus. And to get to our campus, they would not go all the way to Willow and turn left on Willow and then turn left on O'Brien. They would turn left on University from, right?
Can
Right.
Would come
Sorry.
O'Brien Drive through the back way.
Through
So
the
I'm just
university.
want to make sure that we are thinking about where this bicyclist is coming from that would turn left into the campus.
Right. I guess I would in my imagination, because I don't know where everybody's coming from,
Yeah.
I guess I would assume for the purposes of how I got there today, somebody coming from the pedestrian overpass on like Ringwood. So coming from Central Menlo Park and then crossing over that Ringwood Bridge
Right.
and then heading up, then I guess they're going to take
They're going
Newbridge
to take
or
Willow
I.
and they'd be turning right onto O'Brien.
Can I
You're
make
right.
a comment? Because I actually work at a Tarleton property and I do bike commute
Thank you.
to
Thank you
the
very
Tarleton
much.
property. I have turned left onto O'Brien, and for the city's information, that sensor does not register bikes right now.
Yes.
So I do turn left on red.
From University?
From Willow onto,
Okay.
if,
It also doesn't.
for
register on
example,
University,
something, okay, some things
unfortunately.
which have, the main place I go that results in that turn is the sort of restaurants that are over by the Facebook campus.
Got it.
So there's a Starbucks there. There's a
Yes.
few, fast casual restaurants, which might be frequented by the
Yes, for sure.
people there. So
And we were excited when the Facebook project was actually going to happen and there was going to be the Main Street connection. But of course, that's not happening. So that's a good use case. And I'd like to ask Kimley Horn, who's on the phone, to figure that out with city staff, because I want to make bicycle transit as friendly as possible to our campus. Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I think that's really, that was really all I had. So.
Okay, I have a couple of clarifying questions. For example, I'm trying to sort these into clarifying versus feedback. So here on this slide, this is there's a walking path here on the sort of top part of the site, which I think when you showed the map of the bike access facilities, one of them was in the parking garage.
Yes.
I could just imagine that as a cyclist, it might be nice to bike up Willow because it has the protected bike lane as far as possible, and then take this like walking path across. So will that be accessible to bikes?
Right now, we're showing about a 5-foot wide path there, but that's something that we could definitely consider.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then the other question I have, the e-bike share. So I know that the range is somewhat limited for that e-bike share. I think it's limited just basically to the campus itself. Is that true?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I tried to take it to that Starbucks and it was out of range.
And so help me to understand the issue, because this is very interesting to me and disturbing.
Okay.
So the purpose of these bikes is to get to the Starbucks and back. So if it doesn't,
Okay.
Is it?
I will double check that then.
But it's possible that it's not working properly, right? I have my own bike, so I don't take the shared bikes. Tell me what's.
I don't know. So I tried. I just looked at the map, so I might not have looked carefully enough. But I just want to. My question is for the e-bike share. I mean, I think you understand my comment.
Absolutely.
Which is,
I'm actually interested in providing electric bikes that will take you all the way to the Union City BART station, and having a charging station for those bikes at the Union City BART station. So far, I haven't found too many tenants who are interested in doing that journey. But we definitely are not interested in range being a limiter. So if that's a limiter, we will fix it.
okay, that's great to hear. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So I think so I guess I'll look more closely at the range map maybe. But it might be helpful to include that or something. Okay, I think that's it for my clarifying questions. One for the city, which I think you've said is O'Brien itself is part of a larger project. It is quite wide right now, and cars will go very quickly on it. So the potential for is there potential for narrowing the street in some way, probably by including a bike lane at least, to kind of slow traffic a little bit and make space for protected bike facilities?
So we would like to look at it more comprehensively. So at
Right.
O'Brien at its entirety, and to include any bike facility, there will be a likelihood that we have to remove parking on one or both sides of the streets. So that will require further evaluation. So at this time, it's unlikely that we can provide what type of facilities can go on there, or narrowing, because it does impact multiple parcels and properties.
And does having this rather large parking garage at this site impact those considerations?
We'll have to take a look at it later time.
So clarifying question, Joanna, that would come in front of our commission? A plan by the city to propose to the council to put more bike infrastructure on O'Brien?
Yes, we can bring that to the complete streets, but we'll first have to take a look what those impacts is, like what those
Understood.
impacts will be.
Understood. I do have another question. So currently in the plan that exists with this development to install a bike lane on O'Brien, the bike lane is on the north side of the road only. That's the current thinking? Okay. Okay.
Part of our project, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to save my other question for, okay.
And you mentioned like transit, Caltrain Go passes. So these are proposed things that,
It's something that's already provided for the rest of the campus, so it would be available for this development as well.
great.
Sorry, to have two clarifying questions on O'Brien. So when you said that there are other properties on O'Brien that would be impacted adding a bike lane if we remove parking, are all the other properties in O'Brien by this developer?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. And finally, in the staff report, it talks about sidewalk gaps.
If you go to it's almost all. If you go to the master plan map, so
Yeah, it looked
all the
like,
buildings in kind of the cream color
yeah.
are Tarleton Properties. Everything grayed out is not.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
welcome.
thank you very much. Sorry, sidewalk gaps were referred, there was a comment in the staff report about sidewalk gaps existing on both the eastern, western portions of O'Brien. So is that, again, the tense of it is confusing to me. Would the sidewalk gaps exist after the project's completed, or they do exist now? That's confusing to me in the staff report. I can just read it really quickly. It says sidewalks are present along the eastern portion of O'Brien Drive. However, sidewalk gaps exist on both the eastern and western portions of O'Brien Drive, including a segment directly along the project boundary and
So,
along Adams Drive.
yeah, so when the projects are redeveloped, the sidewalk is added. So every
So
time
no
you-
gap.
So there are gaps between, so you go from a sidewalk that's been redeveloped with a project.
Yes.
To the situation that we're showing you where it's just a paved surface from curb to building. And it's vehicular, it's pedestrian, it's whatever. So yes, as the projects are proposed and built, the
Right.
sidewalk is added. But because it's not contiguous,
Okay.
you're going from
Okay.
a true sidewalk to a paved
Okay.
off-street
That's helpful.
area.
Thank you. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any further clarifying questions before we go to public comment?
I have some. So I'm thinking about the LOS-F intersections and the AM and PM peaks. And I'm concerned about the pedestrians and cyclists at those intersections and the signal cycles and the right on red conflicts that are anticipated there. Was there consideration given to pedestrian safety, like crossing safety there? Not just vehicle delay, which I know is part of the analysis, but like what the implications were, and what is the plan for dealing with the invisibility of the improvements in those intersections?
So usually when a intersection becomes non-compliant, so as you were mentioning an LOSF, and the intersection is deemed infeasible, it's because if there were upgrades, and most of the time these improvements would include like lane widening, adding turn lanes, so those will impact bicycle and pedestrian. So the consideration for the infeasibility is potential impact to bicycle and pedestrian. That's why they're infeasible as one of the considerations.
So what's the plan? I don't really understand. So we're going to make the intersections even worse for drivers and cyclists and pedestrians, but we can't make improvements to them. So what are we going to do with those intersections?
Yeah, correct. They're deemed infeasible. So there is a cost that's being paid called the transportation impact fee. So as opportunity arise, we will take a close look at potential improvement. But at this moment, there are no feasible improvements at the identified intersections studied.
But will the transportation impact fee be dedicated to improvements in this area, or is that just going to go into the general fund of Menlo Park?
It's for any improvements in the city.
Okay, well, I mean, I would push for using the TIF to make the sidewalk improvements here in the gap areas. You know, even after the project's complete, there will still be kind of an island of sidewalk here, and for safety improvements in this particular area, and for dedicating those funds to, you know, what seems like to be, I don't use this area, but it seems like a pretty unsafe one. My second question is about the bike lanes. So this is a proposed class 2 buffered bike lane, but we're adding 228,000 square feet of space. Was there consideration given to the other alternatives that would not require parking removal? For example, vertical separations, parking protected, plastic posts, the bollards that has come up frequently in this commission. And why was that not included?
Sorry, to clarify, you mean along O'Brien?
Just wherever there is a bike lane proposed here, it's all class 2. It seems like not fully protected class 4. Is that right?
If you are referring to the existing class 2s along Willow Road and University Avenue, they're existing.
But why doesn't the project team tell me what was the thinking process for bike lanes here, and why is there no protection?
So we've shown the intent of providing bicycle facilities. I think the challenge is that there's a broader study that's happening for the whole street. You know, it doesn't make sense for us to just do a small piece in front of our project and it not be connected to a broader network on O'Brien Drive. So we're showing the intent of providing bicycle facilities. We're willing, we'll work with the city to figure out what is the best solution for that. But we didn't want to show nothing on the street because we do need to provide something. So I think we need to work with the city staff to kind of figure out what the best solution is and implement that.
I would say even if nothing happens in the rest of O'Brien, there's benefits to having, bollard protection at intersections, and that intersection is now going to become more heavily trafficked. So by all means, I'm all for the continuity with the rest of the street. I didn't know that University was kind of used as a back, connection to that area, but I would say the cyclist improvements here really need more consideration. Regardless of what the city does. The city's standard is not to put in protections, and it has not done that even on safe routes to schools. Physical protections is generally class 2. So I would say, just given the amount of traffic and the failing intersections, like the VMT failing intersections, I would push for that. Next question's about the Hetch Hetchy right-of-way. In some of the drawings, I saw the easement was marked, but in other parts of the drawings and the report, it was just marked as Hetch Hetchy. It seems like there's a real improvement for building kind of a connected trail that along this image doesn't show Ivy, but Ivy has Hetch Hetchy underneath it on the other side of Willow. And I would love to hear some more thinking about first of all, the coordination with SFPUSC and their real estate group, but also access for the public. I know there's that parking lot there for the high school, but what is the plan for kind of interconnection with the easement there? And could we create an opportunity for like a really nice connector there? I don't know if any of these show Ivy, but yeah, and maybe some coordination even with the high school as well to carve out some of their parking for a trail.
So we're happy to study that. We haven't at this point. We've just provided the amenities on site, but if that's the thing that we need to look at, we're happy to do that.
Okay. Next is about the construction impacts. So the 2-phase construction on multiple years on this corridor with school traffic and the shuttle stop. Does the EIR's construction management plan include specific provisions for maintaining safe pedestrian bicycle access during the construction period? For example, not closing the new sidewalk during phase 2?
I need to review that. I don't have the answer to that, but obviously that's something that we would want to consider. I mean, we want to maintain full access for pedestrians and cyclists while the construction is happening.
Yeah, I mean, the construction sites in the city are some of the most dangerous, I think, for access.
We have a good amount of setback on the project, you know, in the frontage there to allow for construction to occur. So we'll be mindful of maintaining the pedestrian and bicycle facilities while that's happening.
Next question's about the TDM. I heard something about annual reporting and accountability and the 36% trip reduction target, which is just 1 percentage point below the floor. What happens if the reductions fall short? Like, because it sounds like some of these mitigations are already in place, like the Caltrain, the Go Pass. And what are the consequences if it falls short of the 36% target? Maybe this is a question for the staff.
So during annual reporting, if they do fall short, we'll first work with the applicant to bring that up into compliance. So that will be our first step.
And then what?
And then we'll keep monitoring. And if they are still incompliant, then there is no specific language right now identifying those consequences, but we can provide that at a later time.
Okay. And my last question is about the bike parking. So I understand the staff report says 20 short-term spaces. The project data sheet says 9 were required. The site plan shows 10 were provided. I think I heard Athena say 20 is the actual number, and it was a typo. All those numbers actually seem very low to me, just given the emphasis on cycling on this campus and the support from the landlord. So I would just put some more thought into the analysis, whether it's 10 or 20, that all those numbers for a parking lot with 500 plus spaces, that seems just proportionally very low if we're going to be building new facilities in this area and e-bike charging, et cetera. So I don't know what the standard is in terms of proportions, but it just strikes me as very low. Yeah. For a life sciences center, that's 5-day-a-week work, right? So that's a lot of people coming in and out. So I would say, you know, whether there's parking or not, this commission has studied, determines whether you can kind of induce demand for cycling, and not having parking is very frustrating for people. So it seems like a pretty low cost way of potentially hitting your 36% target.
Yeah, happy to look at that. Yeah, we base the numbers on Cal Green and city's requirements, and so we can go back and look at that.
Thank you.
I have a question about bicycle long-term storage. Are those, do you mean by like, that means like bike lockers and things?
So usually we have a large caged area within the parking garage.
Okay.
With limited access for cyclists, with racks within that area. And then we do have some bicycle parking close to the stair enclosures within the building as well on 1320.
And those are the, because
Those are both
you just
long-term.
distinguish between short-term and long-term?
Yeah.
Short term is the rack by the front door of the building. So it's a
Outside?
outside.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. The long-term parking is undercover.
Uh-huh.
So it's inside either the garage or the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I just have one question for the city. It's a naive question, so I apologize in advance. On the intersections that were deemed problematic but not fixable because they were infeasible, what does infeasible mean? Like infeasible in terms of expense? What does infeasible mean?
It's multiple, and cost is one of them, but another is likely needing to widen, for example, just as an example, widen lanes, which may take, say, the right of way of pedestrians and bicycles, so sort of balancing that. And what we prioritize, which Commissioner Rasko will say, do we take into considerations of pedestrians and bicycles? So if in intersections, say it's one, the right of way constraint, or if the right of way is going to be taken away, like multimodal travel over cars, we'll deem that infeasible because the priority is for active transportation.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can go for public comment.
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you're participating in person, please fill out your speaker card from the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. I have one in queue online. Ken, you are unmuted.
Thanks. My name is Ken Kirshner. I'm a resident in Allied Arts in Menlo Park. I'm really encouraged to hear a developer so interested in making bike commuting attractive. Since the research shows the #1 issue for not choosing biking is perceived safety of the rider, I'm especially interested in understanding where relatively targeted protected lane investments would deliver the greatest increase in a low stress bike access for employees. So in short, a safe routes to work network. Could you help us understand the projected employee bike shed, kind of what the heat map, to estimate the number and percentage of employees who are realistic potential bike commuters under the current network conditions, using that kind of low stress protected network method? And then can you identify like the top 3 gaps in that network where closing the gap would yield the largest increase in bike commute potential? And just a high level cost estimate and the potential increase, kind of cost benefit for the employees that would serve.
Having no one further in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the chair.
Through the chair, I'm happy to try and address that. The quick answer to the question about load shed data, I don't have that. The best that we can do is get sanitized data from the tenants on zip codes for employees. Anything more than that, and human resources starts to get very concerned.
That's good information, though, the zip codes.
Yeah. And you can imagine why they would get very concerned.
Yeah.
And we use that zip code information to tailor our TDM.
Yep.
I'm happy to address this question more particularly as it relates to gaps. Unfortunately, so I've ridden my bike from the various commute locations of the employees to the campus to figure out what the things are that are the problems.
Yeah.
Many of them are outside the control of the city of Menlo Park, unfortunately. And most of them are on the other side of the Dumbarton Bridge.
Mhm.
The #1 thing that needs to be fixed is that when you get to the other side of the Dumbarton Bridge, you have to go way around the wetlands and back around to keep going to Union City BART. Instead of, there's actually a bike and pedestrian bridge that crosses the toll lane, but then it dumps into nothing. You'd have to go cross country and over a fence, which makes no sense. There are some actually relatively easy things, and I've done a video of the route to send it to county on this side and county on that, saying, hey guys, you say you want to reduce traffic.
Right.
This is low hanging fruit.
That is good to know.
Dedication. Because the whole 101 corridor project, it should be like, how about Dunbar?
Okay.
Thank you. I think we will take commission feedback at this point. Would anybody like to start?
I guess just off the cuff. Oh, excuse me. Hello. Thank you for your presentation and for answering all of our clarifying questions. But I just off the cuff, I want to say Commissioner Raskoff I think he was making the point that the number of bike spaces seemed low. And I wanted to say I felt the same way. And I say that just from an instinct perspective, like, okay, you've got 600 people, 520 parking spaces, but then 20 short-term, just that sounds like you don't expect a lot of people to bike. But as John was pointing out, you really want to encourage it. So I guess I have a couple questions. One, there was one aspect of your project where you said, as the phases where people were coming in, you would expand something or other. And I thought, can you expand the bikes? Like, are you locating these bike facilities in a place where there's room to expand them? Number one. Number two, I used to work at Apple Park. And we had a lot of issues with, just want to say, long-term car parking and bike parking, just meaning that people just parked their bikes there. They just kept their stuff there. And it didn't really, it monopolized this usage and the spaces. And it sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, pushed out people who occasionally commuted or something like that. So I don't know if the balance you have between long and short term, for example, is the right one as well, or whether long term is the right way to go. One last thing to say about this is that since you have so many other campuses and buildings, and it sounds like a lot of these green features are being extended to those and already exist, is your number of bike spaces based on sort of the percentage of people who are using bikes in the other buildings? I guess I'd say think big, like maybe this development that's right by Willow will have a higher percent of bikers, and how are you going to plan for that?
Yeah. So just to answer your question about the split between long-term and short-term, we find that the long-term the short-term aren't heavily used because the bikes are typically by the entrance to the building, which is close to the street. There's no shelter. And if people are commuting, they want kind of the weather protected place to park their bike for the day, potentially.
Right.
And so we tend to go light on the short term and heavy on the long term. There is room within the parking garage where we have it located to expand the cage. So yes, we could accommodate more long-term bicycle parking spaces. We gave you the campus-wide numbers, total bike parking throughout the campus, but it's developed on a case-by-case basis. So we're basing it just on the square footage of our project for the bicycles rather than the electric bikes. I want to separate those two things. So the electric bikes are for convenience, like maybe you've biked to work on your own bike, you parked it in the long-term bicycle parking. You could take one of those e-bikes, during your lunch or kind of on a break to get a coffee.
Right.
That's the demand-based kind of quantity and location study that's constantly being tracked.
Mm-hmm.
And so where there's high demand for these electric bikes, there's a higher number of those available for the employees to use. So that's the theory about this new campus also. They'll start to get data about how frequently these are used, and if there's increased demand for them, we'll add more of the electric bikes to that particular location.
Okay, and when you talk about the 40 long-term, maybe the 20, whatever it was, 48, 20, storage for the bikes, does that include e-bike storage, or is that separate?
No, that's a separate station, like I don't know how you refer to those, but you see them in cities. You see, there's like a row of like charging.
So is that outside?
That
not
would be
inside?
outside. Yeah.
Okay, so the e-bikes outside are different than the shared e-bikes that go around the campus?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So, but what if someone takes an e-bike to work? Where are they going to park it?
They would park it in the long-term bicycle parking.
Okay, so the long-term bicycle
So
parking
we
numbers.
don't discriminate against
Sure, no, I
pedal
understand.
camera or electric. If
No,
bring
I
your
understand.
to work, yeah.
Again, I think that sounds to me like there's not enough spaces for bikes if it's
Got
for
it.
both e-bikes and regular.
Sure.
Okay, so
Okay,
that's,
I understand
Yeah.
the comment, and we'll take
Thank
a
you.
look at that.
all right, thank you.
I have a few comments, just kind of going off the questions and the answers from me and from my colleagues. Number one, I would say the Hetch Hetchy objective needs more teeth. I think the draft EIR on the project, it lists enhanced public access to the Hetch Hetchy right of way as a stated objective, but it does not have a mechanism for delivering it. So there's no easement dedication, no trail alignment, no phasing. And under CEQA, the project objectives shape the alternatives analysis. So before the final EIR, I'd like to see the city lock in specific access or an easement commitment as a condition of approval, or remove the objective so the project is not credited with the benefit that isn't actually providing. And the adjacent school already has right of way for parking and athletic fields, so there's precedent for joint use. Number two, I endorse the staff's complete streets framing on the mitigations and the intersections, because they would harm pedestrians and cyclists. And I think that is an important standard. But I am concerned that the $1.2 million transportation impact fee needs to be spent on real improvements in this region, in this city, or this part of the city. And I would encourage staff to come back to the commission with a list of how these funds will be used, and not just let them go into a general fund. They should be used to make improvements alongside what's happening here. Number three, I think given the proximity to the high school and the volume of deliveries that are going to be coming here, the fact that we're rebuilding an entire frontage from scratch, we need a class 4 separated bike lane here. The parking protected version or the vertical buffer bollard version, that should be the standard, not a striped, painted, lane, which provides no physical protection. Rarely do we get a chance to improve 435 feet of street with a clean slate, and we absolutely need to do it here. And then we should not bind that to the timeline of the city, which may or may not happen. Like, we absolutely need a protected bike lane with trucks coming and going and hundreds of people working there, for sure. Next is the corner of Willow and O'Brien that Jackie was talking about. So that's LOS failing in both peaks, and it's the main pedestrian crossing for those high school students. So the final EIR, I think, needs to include specific pedestrian crossing safety analysis at that intersection in terms of crossing delay, conflict exposure, right on red conflicts, not just vehicle delay, which is insufficient. The vehicle LOS and the pedestrian safety metrics are not the same, and we should not substitute one for the other. And then last, I would just thank the staff and the applicant for the project that does fill a sidewalk gap on O'Brien Drive and provides these end of trip facilities for cyclists, which is great. And I will submit individual written comments to the city by the May 18th deadline. I encourage fellow commissioners to do that as well, and also those who are listening from home to do that as well. And I hope the final EIR can take some of this feedback into account. Thank you.
I just want to second that. I think that was really thoughtful feedback, and I think we are trying to find a way to, I guess one thing about working on a commission is you see all the issues together at this moment, but then they get resolved over phases. And for example, what Commissioner Raskoff said about if there's a $1.2 million, that fee, applying it here. Otherwise, it goes into something else, or, we don't talk about, let's do the protected bike lanes, and here's why there's data about speed on O'Brien, or whatever it might be to justify that. And that gets tied to this rather than, pushed off and, a couple years later or something. So I think that his recommendations were good. And I also think they go to, once we're looking at this holistically, making sure the actions happen at the right time and together. I guess one of the things for me on feedback, and I apologize if this is a pedestrian question, but why is the project exceeding VMT? Can someone just explain to me, what is the reason that this particular project, with everything that we've heard, is exceeding it?
So Katrine, maybe it is on the side. So the project is generating VMT of 19 vehicle miles.
That's correct.
Travel. So the city's threshold,
yes,
is 15% below the region's average, which is 13.6. So 19 is more than 13.6. So that's why the project is generating more VMT.
No, I don't know if
what is
that's explaining it for me. I think what I'm trying to say is I see that it's higher than it should be, but why is that? Is it because the ratio of people using cars is because they're traveling long distances to get there?
So I guess it comes from, how VMT was usually calculated. So typically we take from trip generation estimates from the ITE trip generation manual, which provides typical number of trips a type of land use would generate, then we put that through a regional travel demand model, and that is the number that you see is the 19 vehicle miles travel. Potentially, maybe you're thinking that the 19 miles was calculated in a more specific way, like looking at specific employees, how they travel, but I believe that is usually unknown at this time when the building is not occupied. So the calculation comes from a more holistic, a larger perspective.
Okay.
I think we typically start from a place that's a little higher. With the TDM measures applied, we're down to 11.6.
Yes, I did see that as
Okay,
well. And I
okay.
guess that was my other question. I think you said there was someone on the line who could speak to the TDM measures?
Yeah,
Yes.
this is Elizabeth from Kinley
Oh, hi,
Horn.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, sorry, I'm joining online. And so to add to the baseline, so VMT, like city staff mentioned, it's taken from the countywide travel demand model, and the way that the model is done, it doesn't look at individual parcels. They have what's called TAZs, that's large zones, and so it takes an average of that. So it's not specific to this parcel itself, but it's this general area. So that's why it's a little bit average. So because of this location, because of you know anticipated employments and um, population sources for the workers and stuff like that, it's leaning towards that. There's more people maybe coming from the other side of the Dumbarton Bridge that tend to drive more. So that's why it's a higher VMT.
Okay,
And then
thank you.
once with our TDM, we lower it because we have the shuttles, we have the bicycle stuff. And so that's why we get it down to below the threshold.
So is that something that we can see? Is there a list of the TDM measures? Because it was referred to in the staff report, but I didn't see that.
Yeah, it
So this
should
is
have been
this is-
included.
Okay,
It was included as part of like the traffic study, I think in a appendix. I think it was linked to and part of the staff report. We do have the TDM plan that we proposed that Kinley Horn put together, which was also referenced as part of the traffic assessment as part of the EIR.
okay. And so these are the features that will get you where you need to be. And they're evaluated on an annual basis. Is that what you said, Joanna?
Correct.
If they're in compliance and if they're lowering it to the level it needs to be.
Correct.
And what if they don't?
Yeah, and we
Yep.
mentioned again that we will have to follow on that because there is no specific language currently on what that consequence that Commissioner Nebraska was asking for.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Okay.
I have one small piece of just feedback. First off, thank you for the presentation, and I appreciate the sort of advanced focus on bikes and pedestrians. One of the things I'm just sort of ideating for a super small moment, because otherwise I know we're gonna, the idea that bikes always have to be connected to the road. I look around our town so much at these wide pedestrian streetscapes, and they're lovely, and they're protected, they have all the things. And then I look at that nice little stretch of road in Redwood City where they've put the bikes and the pedestrians all in one section. They share that space. And now every time I see really wide frontage, I think to myself that it would be a really nice idea to sort of separate the idea that bikes always need to be in the road. And you have so many tan colored properties along that section that, just imagining a world where they could be separated from cars that way. That's it.
I appreciate that you talk about your buildings as a campus. I used to work at Google, and it was definitely a campus feeling, and they definitely worked hard at making us feel like you get on a bike anywhere on campus and you're going to be safe getting to your location. So there was a very consistent feeling around that campus around your bike and ped experience. It was definitely protected. I'm sure they were fortunate in that they got to design that from scratch or whatever, but I mean, it was a really good experience. I guess the only other thing I wanted to ask about was, So when it said the analysis identified 11 measures to improve intersection operations to pre-project conditions, we talk about Willow a lot in this, on this commission, and it is a little scary to think that level of service, at these intersections could worsen, especially increasing vehicle delay, because we certainly hear a lot of feedback about backup there. Obviously, I know, Joanna, you mentioned that you confirmed that the staff report says that the measures were considered infeasible, but then what's the action? You know what I mean? I mean, are we, just to clarify, Joanna, can you help me out? After this goes in, if level of service worsens and vehicle delay worsens at the intersections, what happens then?
They look for one of those transportation demand options.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at the table of what you were referring to. So I guess the fact is majority of the Willow Road intersections are already at let me rephrase. The level of service is A through F. So typically A through D are generally acceptable, and potentially at levels E and F is when you start feeling those congested intersections. So at these intersections, they are already at that level.
Right.
And so it's, I guess in a way saying like it's making it, yes, a little bit worse, but essentially it's not something that we can currently change.
So it doesn't look like we're going to change it by 2040 either. I mean, I think this to me was a bit of a shock, honestly, because I know we're aware that it's difficult, but at the same time, we are asking people to commute to these places, and we expect 520 of them to fill the parking spaces. I mean, clearly people are going to be commuting by car, not just to these two buildings owned by the developer, but also others. And I'm certain that other developers will have buildings coming up. This is wonderful to see, development in this area and employment, but I don't know if it's a insignificant or slight increase, because when you take it in aggregate, all the other developments that might be going on, like this could be pretty scary. Willow could just turn into a complete parking lot.
I mean, yeah, and unfortunately, Willow Road is one of our major thoroughfares through the city, through the region. So it is, the intersections, it is operating at what it is during the peak, the AM and PM peak, which is congested. And we're really looking at relieving that. We will have to look at like very significant changes, like roadway widening, which I'm sure that requires a much bigger conversation.
Yeah.
Fong has his hand raised. Oh, Fong, go ahead. You can speak.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say something about this, because this intersection operate at unacceptable level of service under no project as well, and not just with project. So if we don't have this project, those intersection will still operate at level of service is there.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I just want to be clear that I'm not associating the level of service with this project, or I'm not saying that this project is the project that pushes us over the edge and, we'll never budge from LOSF. But at the same time, I just want us to be, obviously as a city, we look at things project by project, but if we look at the cumulative effect of a lot of projects in this area, then we know that we don't know. I mean, I'm saying that there's likely to be a bigger probability that we have significant, maybe it's like G, when we go on F, it's so bad, right? So I think that as we're looking at Willow, which I know we've been doing, I think we have to address those questions, more. I think there's just like a macro question that's above this that needs to be addressed for the sake of anyone, for the sake of a biker, a pedestrian, a driver, a commuter. It seems like an issue. Yes. Sorry.
Through the chair, if I could, since we're getting creative here, if I could combine an idea from Mr. Roscoff and your concern about Willow. Is there a world where this $1.2 million that was going to go into some black hole is instead spent on one of the major problems with the east-west bicycle connection, which is that there is no physical separate. I totally understand the desire for physical separation on O'Brien Drive, but let me tell you, as a cyclist, not terribly concerned about the speeds on O'Brien Drive. The speeds, however, on the expressway leading to the Dumbarton Bridge, those are positively frightening for an average cyclist. And there's no physical barrier between the bike lane that runs along the expressway. And so there's a simple fix to this. You simply drop K-rail on the road or on the bike lane so that there's a physical separation. There are some fairly straightforward things that could be done. I agree, Willow's terrible. There's no world where we're widening Willow. We have to get people out of their cars. And if you could commute on an e-bike from the Union City BART station to Menlo Park in a shorter time than you could do it in a car because you have an easy way to get there, we're going to start to peel people out of cars.
I think that's a great idea. And I think dedicating the 1.2 million funds to closing all the gaps that prevent people from wherever they come from, East Bay, wherever our analysis tells us the shed is, fill in those gaps and use it for improvements in this particular corridor. Like that seems to be essential. Widening Willow will induce demand and it'll make the traffic worse. There's now like 20 years of research that shows that. So that is a really bad idea. But helping people make a safe, sustainable commute is actually the answer. It's like, I feel like we're like talking in circles here. Like this is not just vanity stuff to improve conditions for a minority of the population. The point is like actually make things better for the drivers too, because there'll be less traffic if fewer people are sitting as single users of drivers taking up, 75 square feet with their SUVs.
I do have one. I know I said I only had one. I do have one more small question, which is a complete flip from this current. And that is, I'm still back to that left turn from Willow to O'Brien. But the other note that I had made earlier is if we're going to have a 4-story parking garage full of cars and most of them look like they're going to be entering off of O'Brien, that little tiny left turn lane is not long enough and it's going to back up. It's going to start impeding the right-of-way traffic on Willow once that. So unless we have a plan to make that left turn lane a little bit longer, it's going to, I don't see how you're going to fill up a 4-story parking garage with cars that way. I know some will be coming from University. Everything's not routing through Willow. Anyway, that was my other question, mostly for the city.
I cannot answer that question right now, whether we will be extending that left turn queue lane, but we can follow up.
Okay. I just have one last question for Joanna, city staff. Thank you. Because this is the first time as a commission we've commented on a project like this, I understood, sorry, do you need a moment? No, it's okay. No, I meant that in a polite way, because you have stuff you got to do. So I understood from the staff report that, the purpose of this meeting is to provide feedback, which, we have, but we're not making a motion or anything like that. And that, obviously, as you said in the beginning, that when this goes to council, there'll be like a summary in the staff report about whatever, the planning commission and our feedback, et cetera. So how will that work? I mean, will there be a description of some of the things we discussed, or is it up to, it will not be? Will there just be a description of the process, like this came in front of the commission and they gave feedback to the staff and developer, period? And so if we want the actual content of our feedback to be known to the council, then we have to make individual remarks as commissioners to the council?
So if you would like to make a collective comment on the project, we are documenting these feedback today, and it will be in the staff report to the planning commission.
I see.
So when we do report to council, we'll make a reference specific to the planning commission, which will include the feedback today.
Okay.
Okay. I have a couple of somewhat specific feedback, I guess. My first comment, I guess, is to the city, which is we have a developer here who's really excited to help commit to making bike lanes, on making bike transit and pedestrian transit and easing the car burden of this area. And we should really think about how, as a city, we maximize the opportunity to, maybe remove parking and put in a protected bike lane on O'Brien, which is like, fun fact, I bike over the Willow Overpass and on O'Brien, and the Willow Overpass is not the scariest part of my commute. It is O'Brien. I do feel somewhat intimidated sometimes by UPS trucks driving by very quickly. So that would be my comment to the city, is just to really think about how we can make the most of this opportunity. The second point, I guess also to the city, is that there's the crosswalks on Willow. And I know we've talked about this in the context of the Willow project, but the crosswalks at the Willow and O'Brien intersection, there's only one. And it only goes directly across O'Brien. You can't cross Willow at that intersection. And I think that that seems like I don't know why there's not, and at what point that project gets the funding to actually do all of its the improvements that we talked about, because I know that crosswalk is part of those, I think was proposed as part of those improvements. But in the context of having a whole bunch of people trying to get to this site, a whole bunch more people trying to get to this site, when the transit access, the Dumbarton Express and the Samtrans access are all on, they could be on the other side of the street. Having that crosswalk there could be really important. And I would just say that as a commission, a lot of our discussion here is focused a lot on bikes, because I think we're a lot of us are bikers in the city. But having worked at this on campus, I will say that the number of people I have convinced to bike to work is not as big as I want it to be. But a lot of people take transit. A lot of people take the city shuttle. A lot of people take the campus shuttle also. And the shuttle stops, I know that there is I know there's the Charlton shuttle stops on Kelly Court. People just wait in the parking lot for that shuttle. There's nowhere for them to stand while they're waiting. And today, actually, on O'Brien, I was biking home from work, and at the M4 shuttle stop, there was someone literally just standing in the road waiting for the shuttle. So I think that considerations for how to make those shuttle stops really visible and safe for people to stand outside and wait 10 minutes for their shuttle, which might be delayed, or maybe they got out there a little early. I think that's something that's super important. And also access to the shuttle stops. I do walk in the street to get to the M4 shuttle, which on O'Brien, because there's no sidewalks. But that's not part of this project. But I just want to encourage that, the connectivity to transit is really an important thing. Like, people don't like to walk in the street to get off the bus, and then they take the bus less often. And I like the e-bike share. This has been something that I've had a thought that it'd be really nice if I could just e-bike around the city from work for a coffee or whatever. So I think maybe that's something the city should also be thinking about, bike share systems and all that. And maybe this is a good inspiration for that as well. Okay, so that is, I think, all of my comments.
Just piggybacking on that quickly, the first thing you said about a developer who's interested in the feasibility of biking and the issues that bikers have, and where we don't have connectivity. for example, Dumbarton Bridge, and to transit generally. I do really appreciate that point of view and your expressing it and your dedication and interest to it. It's welcome for sure, and thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't really have any comments that are significantly different than my fellow commissioners. I just want to reiterate that the allocation of the bike storage is just not nearly enough for the types of mitigations that we want to see. We want to see less cars, more bikes. And again, anything we can do in this area to make for the person who's reluctant to use bike transportation because they don't feel safe on the streets, protected bike lanes seem like an easy fix for that. They're certainly a step along the way. So doing that on O'Brien seems like a no-brainer. And that's about it. Thank you.
I do have one comment. I know a lot of people have mentioned up here the number of bike parking spaces being low. I think the number of bike parking spaces in the garage will not account for like potential additional bike storage that are provided by the tenants. Because I think like my company has like a bike storage room, which is locked and only accessible to even certain employees. So that might, I don't know if that's what you guys have thought about, but that's sort of why my gut reaction to that number was not that would be low.
Okay.
Yeah, in a multi-tenant scenario, we'd rely on what the landlord would provide. But if you get a large tenant occupancy, like a single tenant, it's highly likely that they would add something within the building as well. So we can look at it both ways to make sure that, either way that we're covered and have the right amount of bike parking.
I'm happy to personally commit that bike storage will never be an issue at my property.
Thank you, John.
I wish.
Yeah.
I wish that it were
Yeah.
an issue.
Yeah.
I would love to build more parking spaces for bikes.
Yeah.
That will never be an issue for us. I mean, the issues unfortunately are offsite and many of them are outside the city limits.
Yeah. I'm just curious, are you seeing an increase in e-bike commuting?
We are, and as we've seen an increase in e-bikes, we have made improvements to the bike storage areas to allow for charging.
Yeah.
If I had a tenant come to me and say, I want a bike to work, but I can't because X, I would be trying to solve X.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Let us know if there's different X's that you're aware of that we're not aware of.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we've completed our feedback section for this item.
Did
Any
you
last
So
comments?
I heard consensus. I didn't hear anything that any of you disagreed with each other. Do you want me to read back a list, or did anyone not agree with, like, how would you like to summarize it? I have a list of 10 I can read back to you. Would that be helpful to just?
That would be great
Okay. And that's what will be captured then in the staff report.
for the planning commission, you mean?
So they're just in order that I wrote them down. So in order that I heard them, no other particular reason. So the number of the bike spaces being low. Did you want to rescind that, or is that still a comment you want to?
Excuse me, maybe the comment is to take a look at whether the number of bike spaces is low or could be expanded if demand arises.
Okay, so like confirm number of bike spaces could be expanded.
Yeah.
If needed. Hechachi access, and I just jotted down like an easement for the city for trail access. Does that capture it? Okay. And then the 1.2 million TIF be spent near the site.
And then somewhat looking at the idea of using it to, as John was saying, using it to,
For TDM, or right now, I could be wrong, but I believe it's to be spent on something in our transportation master plan. Yeah.
oh,
So it already has that, but it's citywide.
It's just to
Ooh.
focus maybe on the, like,
So the geography,
yeah.
it's already going to be spent on bike ped. It's in the transportation master plan.
I think the consensus was that it be targeted to this area, knowing that we're going to have these really bad service levels at the intersections. What can we do, as John was pointing out, to help not just Willow be more safe, but maybe it extends out into at least our county side of Dumbarton Bridge or something like that. You know, that
The money goes into a city fund, so it'd have to be city infrastructure, city jurisdiction.
Oh, city. Okay.
Yeah.
Does what's the Bayfront? Is that not city right away?
I mean, you were
Okay,
talking about.
it doesn't, you don't need to answer it now, but
Okay.
that's something that,
But yeah, we'll capture that the
earmarked
yeah.
to improvements in this area
Yeah.
because of our concern of service levels and traffic delays.
Feedback
Bike
regarding the class 4 separated bike lane for the frontage along O'Brien. The corner of Willow O'Brien having the pedestrian safety crossing as part of the class 4 project on Willow. Not just to look at the vehicle level of service, but to look at a bike ped level of service. Extending the left turn queue lane on Willow for turns onto O'Brien. Make the most of the opportunity. They're writing to Athena's comments. Make the most of the opportunity for O'Brien bike facilities. The Willow Class 4 project. So I think I have that one twice. The O'Brien corner at Willow, and then the shuttle stops amenities being safe and visible. So we have 9. So I had to repeat there.
and accessible.
Safe, visible, and accessible for the shuttle.
Like, as in with sidewalks leading to them.
Yes. ADA accessible.
I'm not sure if this is different, but the idea of continuity along something like O'Brien, where Joanna brought up, this is something we'll look at, you know, as a city, separate and apart from this project. Because as you know, you were saying that, you know, this project, all of a sudden, if we have a bike lane and then it just stops, you know, it doesn't make sense, right? So we're looking at the continuity of O'Brien generally. But maybe that doesn't go to planning because it's separate from the project, this project. Okay.
Okay. We do not need a motion.
Nope.
Thank you, Katrine.
So we can move to item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we have the slide? Can you send us the slide that was just shown with the dates, like of what's happening next? If that could be maybe just sent to the.
It will be in
Commissioners.
the minutes. So the next step slide, is that what
Yeah, but we won't see the minutes until
Until it's
mid-May.
too late.
Mhm.
Yes, I can email this next steps list to
Thank you.
the commission.
Just to jump in here as a quick plug on those important dates. So the Planning Commission official hearing on the EIR will be May 4th. And then the closure of the EIR comment period is May 18th. That's Monday. All of this information is on the project page. So if you go to the planning division section of the website, go to projects, it's under review. It has all the current status, all the EIR, all the appendices, and kind of the next steps. But May 4th is the Planning Commission hearing. I would encourage you, if you have comments on the EIR specifically, that would be those VMT type questions. Give your comment at the hearing or provide written comment, which you can email to me, crturner@menlopark.gov. My name is on the website. That will all be included in the final EIR response to comments, all of the comments need to be addressed in some way in that final document before the EIR is certified. And then the project ultimately acted on by the Planning Commission at a future date.
And when you're on the website of the city and you're looking for a planning project, are you looking at it based on its address?
Yes,
Okay.
it is listed under 1005 O'Brien / 1320 Willow.
Okay. Thank you to everyone for answering all of our questions and hearing our feedback. Looking forward to this project. Okay, the next item is informational items. Under informational items, the city staff provides an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. The first informational item tonight is update on major project status. Katrine, are there major project status updates?
I have two short updates, and these are a follow-up to our discussion last month. The planters were moved at Neelam Park by the pickleball courts or the tennis courts in that area. The planters that weren't moved were serving a purpose. There was a problem with drivers driving across the wood chips to access Middle. And so the planters are there to block people from off-roading and to keep them on the driveway. So they moved what they could. I think there might be one more space or a little bit more room available for parking. But what remains there are needed. And then staff is looking at Middle, and all of the bollards are not there. There is an issue with the turning radius, and so it needs to get looked at. The intent is to put them back. We just have to make sure we put them in a place where they won't immediately get hit. And that concludes my update on major project status.
Thank you. Can we call for public comment?
For virtual attendees who wish to provide public comment, you may engage the raised hand feature, or if you're calling in from a landline or cell phone, press *9 to raise your virtual hand. If you are participating in person, please fill out a speaker card from the back table, bring it to the clerk's desk, and please wait for your name to be called. You can then step up to the podium to make your comment. Having no one in queue for public comment, I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you. The next item is committee and subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittee reports to make? Nope. Seeing none, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:20. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody.